So excited to welcome today's guest to the This Lyric, That Truth podcast, Chris Coursey, who you just shared this with me, rhymes with horsey.
It does. Yep. It's easy to remember that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
I actually have a couple of guests coming in later, and I need to figure out how to pronounce their last names too. So hopefully they'll have a mnemonic or something.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Chris, you wrote a book called The Joy Switch, and I can't wait to talk to you about the book and also about the song that you picked, which is Joy from For King and Country.
Yes, I love that song. Yeah.
We play that one when we do our radio station parades because it goes along with the name of our radio station, Joy 99.
I love that.
Could you introduce yourself a little bit, Chris? And then I want to hear about what inspired you to write the book, The Joy Switch.
Gladly. Well, I am, my wife and I run a ministry called Thrive Today. And I grew up going to a small central Illinois church and learned about God early on. When I became a teenager, I got lost in the woods, and the Lord faithfully brought me back in college, joined a ministry specializing in severe trauma. And about 10 years into ministry, I met a guy by the name of Jim Wilder. And together we started creating training called Thrive Training, where we train relational skills. So like joy is one of the relational skills. They're actually brain skills that we do a lot of exercises. We do a lot of events and trainings to really give people practice to learn these skills that ideally we learn in our family, in our community, but they don't always show up. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't learn these skills, we kind of learn substitutes to get by. And so I pastored for about 10 years as well up north, small town called Baldwin, Michigan.
Ah, yes.
And my wife and I moved to Holland about 7 years ago, just fell in love with Michigan. And we've been here ever since. So we do lots of traveling, lots of trainings and conferences, really helping people learn these skills that ideally our brain has learned along the way from other people who have these skills. And so when people don't learn these skills, they get stuck. They get stuck in their big emotions, relationships break down, addictions and trauma are a big part of that. So we really help people develop Christ-like character. How do I be more like Jesus? Not only on the good days, but on the bad days when things go wrong, when I haven't slept or I'm in a conflict with my spouse or my sons are, have a rocky relationship with my children, not getting along with coworkers. And so brain science has really in the last 30 years come out with a lot of really helpful things that just shows how profoundly wonderful and beautiful God created us to be. Like we're made for relationships. And so my wife and I just look at brain science and scripture and come up with ways of helping people understand why we need things like joy. How do I learn to rest? How do I learn to recognize when people need a breather? How do I live with the sense of God's peaceful presence in my life, especially in the hard times? So yeah, write books and just love what I do. It just feels every day is a gift that I get to meet wonderful people and get to help them learn and grow maturity and become more like Jesus.
Is that something that you have trained your brain? You just said every day is a gift, kind of a throwaway line.
Yeah.
Is that really how you look at every day?
It is, honestly. Growing up, I didn't feel this way because there's pain and fear kind of running my life. And I noticed I was missing all the skills that we now teach. I was missing. My wife and I were both missing a lot of these skills. So as we started to learn these skills from colleagues and friends, we started practicing, a lot of the exercises to really help train your brain. People would say I'm a happy guy, but it's really joy. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of joy in the Lord, joy in my relationships. And I just, live with a lot of joy where I'm thankful for what I have. And it's not that bad things don't happen. It's not that our family doesn't have hard stuff that we have to deal with. But you can train your brain to amplify the good stuff in your environment rather than amplifying the bad stuff, because your brain's going to amplify something. It's either going to amplify joy or it's going to amplify, fear or anger or something else. So with a little bit of training, you can train your brain to run on the fuel of joy. And that's when you can find the silver lining, so to speak, in life, and even in the hard times.
I read your book last night.
Wow.
I wish I had it last week. Yes. And I should have read it last week. It was on my to-do list because I was recently in a meeting. And I was frustrated about something. Yep. And I did what I call a stream of consciousness puke. And
Yes.
everything that has ever made me mad, like in my whole life, came tumbling out of my
Oh,
mouth,
yeah.
like about the job and about this
Yeah.
thing and
Oh,
about,
yeah.
blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was awful. I had to
Oh.
text everybody later and ask for
Oh.
forgiveness.
Yep.
I thought, ooh, there was a switch somewhere in my
Yes.
brain.
That's right.
Now maybe I could have the skill next time I feel like doing
Yeah.
that to flip it before I do a stream of consciousness
That's right.
dump, right?
Yes. Yes, that's right. And that's the exciting thing. You know, we train 19 relational skills, but the joy switch is about the foundational skill, which we call your brain's relational circuits. And really, the system can act like a dimmer switch. When it's on, I'm relational. I'm enjoying people. I'm curious. I want to be kind and all of those good things that we like.
Yes.
But
And
when
want to be.
and want to be, that's right. But there are times where that switch that starts to fade, and it is when it starts to go off, we react. Our brain gets stuck on pain and problems. We lose all curiosity and creativity. That's usually when my mouth is running with, without me thinking about what I'm
That was me.
saying.
That was me.
And that happens. I mean, that happens to all of us. And this is just the exciting thing for me about this topic is we can learn to notice when that switch is off, and we can actually do something to get it back on.
Talk to me about those questions that, I mean, you mentioned them, but there's sort of a list of questions you detail in the book, and you can ask yourself them and go, wait a minute, my joy switch is really off right now.
Yes. Yeah. There's a couple of different ways to identify it. And one of them is what we call cake.
Okay.
Right. So cake, we all love cake, and it's helpful to remember some of these things. So the C in cake is, am I curious right now? When I'm in relational mode, as we call it, when the switch is on, I'm curious about, wonder what God's doing here. I wonder what my wife is thinking, or I wonder what's really going on with my son. He's really offline tonight. So when it's on, I'm curious. When it's off, I lose all curiosity. I don't care, right? Because I'm focused on whatever it is that I'm upset about. And the A in cake is appreciation. And so appreciation is really remembering God's gifts. It's times where you can remember joy. You can remember, like I'll ask my sons, what was a highlight from your day? Right? Tell me about it. That's appreciation. We're remembering joy. And you can feel that in your body if your relational circuit's on. If that joy switch is working, you can actually feel it in your body as you think about it. Like, oh yeah, that was really fun. I love this conversation I had with my son, taking him to school, and we drove by the lake and it was so beautiful. Like, you can actually start to feel that in your body, which is a sign that the relational circuit's on. When it's off,
you don't care.
You don't care. You're just not feeling the love or the joy. And the K in cake is for kindness. And so when I'm in relational mode, I'm kind. I can put myself in other people's shoes. I want to be tender with their weaknesses. I'm actually able to just kind of reflexively be kind as an expression of the heart that God's given me. And, when the relational circuit's off, just don't care. I'm offline. And I'm probably overwhelmed. And when we lose the kindness piece, some of us kind of get amped up with energy. We get mad. Some of us just disconnect and shut down. And then the E in cake is for eye contact. And so when I'm in relational mode, I look people in the eye. I want to see them and I want to understand their minds. I want to hear them, but I can engage them with eye contact. In relational circuit off mode, you might give someone the death stare, or we just don't want to look at them. When my sons are offline, they just don't want to look at mom or dad. And so these are some really simple ways that we can just pause and say, okay, am I in relational mode right now? And we call, when relational circuit or the joy switch is off, we call that enemy mode. Because in enemy mode,
that described how I was feeling inside.
Yep,
enemy, like attacking.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the people we care about start to feel more like enemies. And this is where you get a lot of conflicts where someone just wants to win. They don't care if they run you over and you feel like roadkill. They just want to win this disagreement or this argument or this conflict. So enemy mode is really kind of our default state. So if I'm not joy switch on, up and running, your brain reverts to enemy mode, where I just want to get away, or I just want to really fight, or lock horns. We're not our best selves when enemy mode, arises. But the good news is we are fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image, and a little bit of practice, a little bit of effort, we can learn to get really good at noticing, wow, we were having a conversation. This was going really well, but I noticed I just lost my peace. I think I'm slipping into enemy mode. Let's pause for a moment. Let's take a breather. Or, you learn what helps you get back into relational mode with a little bit of practice.
This is something you talk about a lot in your book, the pause.
Yes.
And taking a minute, taking a breather. You practice this, and you've studied this a long time. Yeah. Someone came at you at a restaurant and they were just upset. You had showed a video that offended them.
Yeah.
And you said, let's just breathe a second and calm down the situation. And then you continued that conversation.
Yeah, that's right. It was a good example where someone was in enemy mode. They had gotten, just some pain had gotten kind of stirred up with a video we showed of a family suffering for Jesus in a non-Christian country. And it triggered some really deep pain.
Yeah.
And this person was just kind of blast. It was on blast mode. Mm-hmm. And I realized my words weren't going to fix this right now. Like, giving this person more information is not actually helping. So I just did the time out, like, let's pause for a moment and catch our breath, because I knew, okay, in enemy mode, words actually can make it worse. So it's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It's just not going to go well. So we took, it's probably a 30, 60-second pause. It felt like a long time because everybody was watching this interaction.
And
so
you were just like, time out.
I was just time out. Let's, I want to hear, I said, I want to hear what you have to say, but let's just pause for a moment. And I took a couple deep breaths, and this person was standing there, right? No one's talking. And this person's, calming down. And then in a, low voice, I just said, I'm so sorry that this video, hurt you and upset you. I wouldn't have played this video if I would have known it was going to, cause this reaction in you, or I would have warned you. And I'm so sorry that this happened. So at that point, the individual had kind of shifted out of enemy mode back into relational mode. And a sparkle in their eye returned. You diffused
it because they felt heard.
Yeah, they felt seen, heard, and understood, which is what our brain really likes. We want to feel seen by someone. We want to feel heard.
Yeah.
And we want to feel understood. So at this point, the person felt like I was seeing them, hearing them, and understanding them. And within, a minute or two, they had a smile on their face. They said, thank you. And they walked away. And if we hadn't taken that pause, if we hadn't just calm down for a moment, catch our breath, because your breathing gets really shallow when you go into enemy mode. We get upset and your nervous system gets really tense, and we start shallow breathing. You get, it's really less oxygen to your brain. We get impulsive, not a lot of good things happen. So when you take that deep breath, what it does is it kind of calms and quiets you a little bit. And then you're like, okay, I'm back. Let's try this again. And that just really saved the day. And it wasn't hard to do, but it did take a little practice. If I hadn't been practicing this in my own life, I wouldn't have thought to do this in that moment. I would have probably tried to give them more information to understand, and this person wouldn't have felt seen or heard or really understood if I tried to just explain it.
We had a situation at our radio station recently, and a listener was upset about something, and she sent an email and she detailed out what she was upset about. And I felt like I should call her and talk to her and hear her.
That's good.
And of course I had 100 things of why I could explain all that, but I thought she's just mad. She's upset. She's hurt. And so I said, if you would like to talk about this, please send me, your phone number. And she did. And this was, days had gone by. So that pause was expanded a little bit. We had the nicest conversation. And there were 30 things going on beneath the surface that had nothing to do with what she was upset about, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And we came to a place and I was able to say, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that hurt you. That wasn't our intention in any way. But, and we were able to have a nice conversation in a calm way.
That's huge.
My instinct was to fire off an email real quick and respond, right?
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that I just took a minute to hear. I wish looking back at my life, I could have done that with everybody who called or emailed, right?
Yep. That's an excellent example, because actually for your brain, the lack of a face or a voice or seeing the body and the mannerisms, it's really hard for your brain to understand what's happening in another person's mind. So for you to know, this is a conversation we need to have over the phone. There's some voice tone there you could share. And thankfully they had a little time to probably, calm down.
Yeah.
Text and email are the worst things for the brain when it comes to trying to get out of enemy mode.
Okay.
Because what happens is we put our own, the skill is called mind sight, mind sight means I'm able to understand a mind based on your face. So that's when you look at someone, they look tired or they look bored or they look frustrated. That's this mind sight skill. You look at a face and you can try to predict what's happening in the mind based on the face. And we don't have that information when it's in a text or when it's in an email. Now, thankfully, your voice was what really saved the day as well. Mm-hmm. Your voice tone, you came into it sympathetic. You were able to enter in and apologize. Like you did all the right things there to help someone get out of enemy mode when they get stuck.
And it wasn't untruthful. I am sorry that she was hurt by that. I really am. Yeah. I am sorry that you are sorry that that person had that visceral reaction to the movie. You would never set out to hurt anybody, nor would I. And it's okay for another person to say, I'm hurt.
Yes.
This is hurting me. But if you can talk about it and you can hear the other person.
Oh yeah.
And
Huge.
So what do you do when you've acknowledged the joy switch is off, you're in attack mode, you're in enemy mode? Going back to that situation earlier this week, I very much was all those things. What do you tell yourself to take a break? Do you get up and walk? Do you say, let's come back to this?
Good question. And there's a couple different options here. One is as you start to learn this, you have a lens. So you can get really good at recognizing when you're losing access to your joy switch or someone else's. And it helps to have a language. That's why I wanted to write this book, so that we have a lens. So if my wife and I are having an interaction and something's upsetting, and you can tell by the change in a voice, the voice tone, the look on a face, the body mannerisms, and of course the words as well. Mm-hmm. It's being able to say, hey, I think I've lost my peace here. Let's take a moment. Let's just take a breather. I learned early on with my wife, it doesn't help her if I say, hey, your joy switch is off. Let's get it back on before we try that. That does not go well. And we both discovered
I wouldn't react well to that either.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel good. No. But I might say, honey, are you okay? It sounds like you're losing your peace. What do you need? What would be helpful here? And so taking a moment to pause, some people do better with low energy responses. So some people just want a little breather. They'll sit, they'll take those deep breaths. Some people are high energy responders. They actually do better with movement. Yeah. So they might want to walk or pace or stretch. The goal is just to find out what helps you get your joy and your peace back when you lose it. And for me, I'm a low energy person. I like to just sit for a moment. I'll talk to the Lord. I'll breathe. And then I could feel this joy switch coming back online. My wife, she actually does better with connection. If I give her a hug, when her relational circuit's off, that hug goes a long way. Even when I'm the source of the upset, right? It still helps her to be able to get that connection. But some people need to move a little bit. So you have a lens and a language going, wow, I think we're losing our peace. What would be helpful right now? Are you okay? What do you need here? So it's that curiosity. Okay. So if we're curious.
Do you have to force yourself to be curious? Or is this something when you sort of practice these steps, it naturally is an outflow of what you've already been practicing? Because I feel like I'd have to force myself.
It's a good
What
question.
is it you need exactly?
Yes. For me, I spent a lot of my time in enemy mode. So I was not necessarily a very curious person. But as I started learning all this stuff, I thought, okay, I'm going to try to really notice when my relational circuit's off and I'm in enemy mode. And I found that the more time I spend in relational mode, curiosity just grows. Like I'm more curious the more that I've started to pay attention to this. And curiosity just blossoms. But when we're in enemy mode, your brain's just trying to solve a problem. Okay. So all the relational parts of your brain shut off. And so in enemy mode, it's like touching a hot stove, right? God gave us this self-preservation circuit so that if I touch a hot stove, I move my hand quickly. Or if something startles me, I jump, right? And my heart starts racing, adrenaline surging. So part of this is we have to quiet this high energy state that often happens in enemy mode. And curiosity will start to flow the more that we start noticing this. It's a little bit of self-awareness as we start paying attention to the body is the canvas for the brain. So you know how you're doing emotionally and mentally by what's happening in your body.
Okay.
So part of me knowing I'm in enemy mode is when my stomach muscles get really tight and my breathing gets really shallow. I go, what am I worrying about? What's going on here? Now I want to talk to the Lord about this. Maybe there's something, I need his peace here because there's something I'm navigating that I'm just really struggling with. So practicing it as you build a little joy, the curiosity comes with, wow, this was a wonderful gift that God gave me. Lord, why did you give me this particular gift today? You must have known I needed this. Or as you interact with other people, how are you doing? You look worried today, right? That's the mind sight skill. Hey, what's going on? You look like you're troubled here. Talk to me. What do you need right now? I can see this really upsets you. So, and it's very genuine. This is authentic. It's not like we're trying to follow a certain formula to force it. It's just learning to be a little more in tune with the body that God gave us and the mind that God gave us. And to, ask questions. What's it like for you to be in relational mode? What do you notice, how that feels in your body? What do you notice in your thoughts? How does that impact your interactions with the Lord? Okay, in enemy mode, what shifts in your body? What disappears when you go into enemy mode? What qualities that God's given you disappear when enemy mode arises? And how does that feel in your body? Mm-hmm. So curiosity grows as we just start practicing some of this stuff. And it's like finding a hidden gem. Curiosity is like you're finding a hidden treasure. It's like, I want to know what's happening in your mind. I love to know what the Lord is. Lord, what are you doing in all of this? You must have something good in this. It just doesn't feel good right now.
You're somebody that lived in enemy mode a lot when you were growing up and into your college years, but you have really changed. And you said people, you went to a reunion or something and people like, dude, reunion. You are totally different than you used to be. You really have retrained your brain toward joy.
It's wonderful. I mean, God's given us this thing called brain plasticity, which just means we can learn new habits. We can change unwanted patterns. And I was pretty wild when I was young. And so it was one of my high school reunions. I was not the same person. Like, I had gone into ministry. I'm a pastor. Nobody believed I was a pastor. I had to pull out my ordination card to prove, because my friends wouldn't believe me. Like, no way, you're messing with us. I'm like, no, I'm actually a pastor. And it just God just profoundly changed my character. And I'd say, living from the heart that Jesus gave me, that's what I was doing. And the joy was there. The peace was there. The curiosity was there. Like, so many good qualities that God had placed in me that had just kind of gotten lost and buried in my pain. And I kind of lived by fear. I was just a people pleaser. I didn't have much joy or peace. And when you don't have a lot of joy or peace, your default is enemy mode. And it's like, okay, how do I avoid what hurts me today? How do I avoid the problems that feel overwhelming? How do I get away from this upset because I don't like how I feel? And it actually was, God got all the glory for that reunion, because people saw something in me that so profoundly changed. They really couldn't believe me initially until I proved it with my ordination card. And really, God gets the glory for that. Like, I died and was resurrected, and God had changed my character. I grew maturity. I was becoming a better version of myself, which is much more relational and peaceful and joyful.
I don't know if I've thought about it in this way before, that you can work on growing relationally.
Yeah.
You really can.
You can.
And you can grow your curiosity. And when you grow your curiosity about other people, then your friendships grow and deepen.
Oh, it's so life-giving, honestly. Like, I never even knew this kind of living was possible growing up. I never imagined in a million years I would actually go into ministry and get to serve wonderful people and just watch God work. And that's where this training comes in. With Adam and Eve, God put them in a garden that he created, but their job was to tend it. So a lot of character change and maturing comes from tending the garden that we have. So, like joy, that's actually a skill. So when faces light up to see you, your brain changes every time you see a face light up to see you. The brain science actually says we're the sparkle in someone else's eyes. So when you're the sparkle in someone else's eyes, that deeply impacts your identity and your character. And we can all intuitively feel the difference when we walk into a room and somebody's not glad that we're there. We feel that. It's a gut punch. But if you walk into a room and a friend sees you, you're going to see it on their face, because this relational circuit's actually nonverbal. the system is nonverbal in the right hemisphere. So it's not so much the words that's going to build joy. It's the faces, it's the voice tone, it's the movements, the mannerisms. Those are the elements that this part of your brain pays attention to. So like I could say, I'm really glad to see you, and smile. Your brain's like, no, that's not real. Like say, I'm really glad to see you. This is like, I'm really glad that I'm here.
Yeah.
Your brain feels that different. So the words, which are very important for especially the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere is really all about the relationship. Okay. The interactions, the faces and the voices, and that's what your brain pays attention to. And I love being on an airplane when there's a little one, a little infant, in the seat in front of me, and they peek through the seats and they'll watch me. And at first they're like, who is this stranger? But as you genuinely are glad to see the little one, you see the changes. They feel the genuine joy. Like God made us. We are wired for genuine, glad to be together joy. It's relational. Happiness is more circumstantial. I'm happy because a new movie's coming out and I want to go see this movie with my family. Right. Joy is what's shared, the shared experience. Like I get to do this with people I love. I get to have coffee with a friend that I care about. So joy is, your brain's always looking to see, is someone glad that I'm here? And Jesus, right? He, like, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, as Hebrews tells us. So in a sense, joy is a relationship. So when you think about Jesus, for the joy set before him, if it's happiness, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. What's going to be happy about suffering? But it's for the relationship with you. He endured the cross. So joy is personal. It's relational. And your brain takes joy personally, right? So when you see someone light up, when you see a face light up to see you, your brain says, wow, there must be something good in me, because look how glad this person is to see me. And especially children, right? When they see faces light up to see them, their brain goes, well, there must be something good in me, because look how glad this person is to see me. And it changes our character. Joy is just one of the ingredients that profoundly changes our character. And that's part of why I was so different at my high school reunion. I had grown and cultivated joy in my life, joy with God, as well as joy in my community with my friends and my peers and my colleagues. It was like places that were dormant in me came alive. And joy helps those places in us really blossom and come alive. And so I always tell teachers this: joy is the best environment for the brain to learn. So if you have a classroom that's anchored in joy, kids are going to learn so much better than a classroom where we're all afraid of the teacher and we're afraid of what the teacher is going to say or do. Fear is not a good state. Like we often say, fear is good for about 90 seconds. And if we haven't solved the problem in 90 seconds, we need to come up with a new plan, because fear is not good for us for very long. It's good when I touch that hot stove. It's good when I'm almost getting in a car accident. I have to slam on my brakes or veer. Joy is really what helps people reach their God-given potential. Joy and rest. So joy is high energy. If you watch an infant build joy, you'll see their little legs kick and their arms swing, and you'll see it on their face. Like they come alive. It's the accelerator. Joy is energy producing emotion. But if you watch an infant do this, when they've had a bunch of joy, they will look away and avert their gaze. And that means it's time for a breather.
Okay. So
joy is one side of the coin. Quieting is the other side. So when infants look away and we avert our gaze, that means I just need a breather for a moment. Okay. When they're ready for more joy, they'll look back at the parent and go, let's bring it on. Let's build more joy. So joy and quiet, joy and rest are actually a 1-2 punch that's good for us. It's good for our nervous system. It's good for our brain. So we build joy, we take a breather. We build joy. And so in a lot of our trainings, we're teaching people how to do this with usually they come with a bonded partner or they'll work in a group. So we'll have people like practice these exercises. Okay, we're going to practice joy and rest. Look at the person, try to build a little joy, but as soon as you need a breather, look away. Or if you see that they need a breather, look away. And that's training your brain to get really good at, knowing what time it is. What time is it? Is it time for glad to be together joy, or is it time for a breather? Because some people just need a breather before they need joy. Or some people, they have a ton of joy and they're not resting as well. Some people are really good at resting, but they don't have a lot of joy. So it's really, we need both. It's two energy mind states, we'd say. We need high energy joy, but we need some nice deep breath to rest.
How do we bring more joy into our workplaces?
Yeah, good question. Now, there's a couple things that we can do. One of them is what my mentor Jim Wilder would say. We share our faith with Jesus, and so we say, Jesus, I want to invite you to live in my face today. I want you to use my face as a billboard for you. So we learn to live in our face, which means we learn to show the joy that we feel. We're not forcing it, right? I'm not trying to force this. It won't work that way, because your brain can tell the difference between real, genuine joy and forced joy. So one thing is we live in our face. What does it look like for you on your face when you're glad to be with your coworkers? One of the things that really primes your brain for joy is remembering joy, right? So when I'd say, let's just pause and take, 60 seconds to think about a gift that God's given you in the last few days. And let's, give it a name and let's just share it. If you get people just remembering joy, feeling some of that joy as they remember it, and then easily you can share it. So like, hey, I was just remembering, the walk that I took with my wife the other day, and it was warmer outside, the wind was blowing, the birds were singing, and it just felt really good to connect with my wife. Like, we've been in a busy season. And so that walk was just life-giving for us. So as soon as your brain starts to remember joy, your brain starts to respond as though you're reliving the moment all over again. So that's a big deal. So when you remember the good stuff, your brain starts to respond as though you went back in time and you're doing it all over again. So one of the ways we kind of increase our capacity for joy is to remember it. So every evening at our house, we would remember joy. We don't minimize or dismiss the hard stuff, because we'll also talk about the hard stuff, but we always start and end with joy. Where was joy blossoming in your day? Where did you feel some joy? Where did you bring some joy? Right?
It's a way better question than, how was school today?
Oh, yeah.
What was your favorite part? Recess.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty much, yeah. We've learned to try to mix it up, because my sons, they're on to us. They know we're trying to build some joy. But like in the workplace, creating a culture of joy was where we express the good stuff. We remember and savor the good stuff. We have gratitude. Gratitude also primes your brain for joy. We talk about what we appreciate in our coworkers. If I work with a leadership team, one of the best exercises for a group is I'll have them go around the room and share one or two things they like about each person. Now, you have a group of people and you're giving and receiving joy, right? Because I'm sharing what I really appreciate about my coworkers, and I'm hearing what they all appreciate about me. Like those kinds of exercises are so simple, but so profound. You're going to grow a bond of joy when you start to do this.
A bond of joy.
Yeah.
That sounds like a way more fun meeting than the one I described to you.
It is. And it just takes a little bit of practice. Like, hey, I'll set it up like, hey, let's just try a little 10-minute exercise before we go into this project. Let's just take a moment and let's remember joy, or let's express some appreciation for each other, or let's just share what we appreciate about God. What's God doing in your life that you're thankful for? What's he teaching you? What do you like about God's character and God's word? So it's really training your brain to amplify joy, which gives us strength to suffer well when the hard stuff happens. And there's a difference between suffering well and trauma. Trauma is I'm diminished. Trauma is an enemy mode reaction, right? When hard things happen, your brain, I can't manage what I feel, that's trauma. With joy, we suffer well. I'm staying my relational self even while I go through this hard stuff. And so we often talk about in our teaching, Jesus was suffering well on the cross. He was still himself relationally. He prayed for people, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Would he do that if he wasn't hanging from a cross? Right? He said, John, today this is your mother. Mom, today this is your son. So, and he was encouraging the person, right? The other criminal, like, today you're going to be with me in paradise. Like, Jesus was his relational self in excruciating pain. He stayed his relational self. He remembered who he was. And when trauma happens, we forget who we are. We end up getting stuck in reactivity, and our brain just does not like it. But when you have people with a lot of joy are hard to traumatize.
People with a lot of joy are hard to traumatize.
That's right.
Do you know what that statement does for me?
No, what is it?
It makes me question how much joy I'm operating out of.
Yes.
I mean, it's very convicting in a good way.
Yeah. It's a good lens, isn't it?
Like, how easily am I traumatized, or do I call that trauma?
Yeah.
Am I really operating with a lot of joy?
Yeah.
I got to do some digging, Chris.
That's it. And you know what? Joy gives us strength, right? Yeah. And Nehemiah says the joy of the Lord is your strength. So people with a lot of joy have a lot of capacity to manage the hard stuff.
Okay.
So joy strengthens our capacity. So I can carry more weight before I lose it. That's why people with a lot of joy are hard to traumatize, because they can carry a lot of weight before they lose it. People with not a lot of joy will quickly lose it because I don't have that reserve of joy to fall back on. So that's why we're so passionate about joy and these relational skills. Like, just so many good things grow in this garden, in my character and how I express that in my life and my relationships. We become more loving. We become more like Christ when we grow joy. And it's profound. It's beautiful.
What's hopeful to me in having this conversation with you, Chris, is that so many people listening might really relate to that, or feel like they're always in enemy mode, or perhaps had a childhood like you describe, but that you can grow your garden by feeding it and tending to it and working on things and changing the atmosphere of your home toward joy and the atmosphere of your office toward joy. Like, all is not lost.
All is not lost. And I tell people a little bit of joy goes a long way. And when I started this journey of mine, I didn't have a lot of joy. My joy tank was on empty. And my wife and I both are just, part of our testimony is like, wow, how God, has really helped us in this journey to grow joy, to get better at resting, to learn these relational skills. It changes everything. Every interaction can be touched and changed by joy. When joy is present, even when we're solving problems or we're navigating hard stuff, the presence of joy gives us strength to be our best selves. And we can learn to return to joy when we've lost our joy. So when I get really angry or really overwhelmed, your brain actually creates pathways back to joy from strong emotions. And so I learn when joy is my campsite or my home base that I return to, right? At the end of the day, I always want to get back to joy. I don't want the sun to go down on my anger.
Okay.
So when joy is your home base, then what happens is when you lose your joy because of whatever painful things you're navigating, your brain actually learns to get back to joy. And our brain learns this starting at the second year of life. So if my family has these skills, I'll learn how to get back to joy from being angry. I'll learn how to get back to joy from feeling some shame or feeling hopeless or disgusted or sad. These are skills that we can learn. I didn't learn a lot of these skills growing up, but that's why the practice really pays off. So the exercises in the Joy Switch book are really where the good stuff grows, because those are things you practice to train that right hemisphere in your brain where we learn all these things.
Where can people get the Joy Switch? I downloaded it last night from Amazon Books or something.
Yeah, Amazon's great. We actually have a website where there's a lot of free resources. There's like assessments that people can get. So thrivetoday.org is...
We'll put that in the show notes for sure. I'm going there today.
Oh, that's awesome.
What is it again?
It's Thrive Today, all one word,
thrivetoday.org. Yeah. Talk to me about this awesome song from For King and Country, which is called Joy.
It is. It's one of my favorite songs. I just, actually a friend sent me the song when it first came out. And like, Chris, you have to listen to this. And I just love the song, and it just captures the joy, the fun of joy.
I choose joy.
I choose joy.
It's a choice.
Yep. It's a beautiful thing.
And it's different than happiness. I love that.
Yep. Big difference. Yeah. Helps to tease that out a little bit. Joy's relational. It's a relationship. We can choose, to do things that's going to help us be happy or help us, find joy, but it's a relational interaction. It's a relational exchange that grows joy. We can grow joy with Jesus. We can grow joy in our community, at work, in our family. Like, joy is just a smile away.
You're working on a new book.
Yes. Yes, I'm really excited about this.
Tell me about the new book.
So the new book is really how to manage what you feel. And it's really about returning to joy from negative emotions. So this is about those pathways that we can learn. We can actually grow those return to joy skills, as we call them, where I learn to get back to joy and peace from strong emotions.
Okay.
We can build this habit, and it takes a little practice. Stories are a good way to help people learn to return to joy. When I used to teach Sunday school in a church, I always told them a return to joy story. I was really sad this week, but here's what happened. Here's what God did. And I started to feel some joy again in the midst of this. Like, you can tell these return to joy stories, which helps your brain. It helps every human brain to learn how to get back to joy. So if I have the skill, I'll help people when they get stuck. I'll sit with them. I'll validate, wow, this is really big. I'll comfort, like, wow, what do you need right now? This is really upsetting. When we feel that seen, heard, and understood feeling, that helps us get back to joy. Like, okay, I'm not alone, for someone is with me. Our brain doesn't like being alone in upsets. We really want to feel seen, heard, and understood. Jesus is always with us. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. So we have a God who's near and not far away. He's with us even in the valleys and the storms. But as we also reflect Jesus by joining them in the hard stuff that they're walking through, that's actually helping them find a pathway out of the upset. It doesn't mean all the problems are fixed, but it means I can have some glad to be togetherness even while I navigate this storm.
Chris, thank you for sharing your story with us, both in your book and here on the podcast. Thank you for giving us hope that if you're in enemy mode, there's ways to get out of enemy mode and step into more joy. Yes. Thanks for giving us some hope that we can create more joyful homes and office spaces with our coworkers. And there's hope that joy is just around the corner, a smile away.
That's right. It's just a smile away. And thank you for having me, and thank you for talking about these things. I love talking about this, and this station's my family's favorite radio station. So thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of This Lyric, That Truth. If you were inspired by today's conversation, feel free to share it with a friend and leave a 5-star review. If you're looking for more hope and encouragement in your music, download the Joy Media mobile app for free wherever you download your apps. I'm Ceci, and I so look forward to sharing more in-depth conversations with you as we talk about the lyrics that encourage us and shape our lives. Meet me back here next week for another episode of This Lyric, That Truth.